Body Social, or Ella, back with another video. Walking again. Today I wanted to talk about relationship realism, and the title of the video is Relationship Realism, You Will Be Retraumatized, which is not clickbait, that's real. I think that in relationships, even healthy relationships, traumatized people will be re-traumatized. And I want to explain why I think that and what that means for relationships. So basically, I think traumatized people will be re-traumatized in relationships for a few reasons. And the first being, well, humans aren't perfect. So someone might not be perfectly attuned to you at all times. They might not remember triggers or, always have the emotional capacity to respond to your emotional needs, etc. And that doesn't mean that something abusive is going on. It just means that humans aren't perfect. So the question is then, how do you know if something abusive is going on or not, given that re-traumatization is inevitable? I think basically abuse is a power imbalance, and it involves exploiting another person. And it's hard to know what that looks like emotionally. I think, physically it's kind of clear, financially it's kind of clear, but emotionally it can be hard to distinguish sometimes. But I would recommend looking into Dr. Ramani's playlist on the narcissistic abuse glossary. Okay, my video storage was full, so I had to delete things, but I'm back. Yes, anyway, what I was saying, Dr. Ramani's narcissistic abuse glossary of terms, I think it's helpful for distinguishing what is emotional abuse. And I will link it. I don't necessarily share her views, her kind of fatalistic views, but I think that is a very helpful resource just to kind of know the basics of what behavior is emotionally exploitative. So yeah. But I do think we will all re-traumatize each other, even though we might not be abusing each other, for another reason, not just because humans are imperfect and we might not be perfectly attuned. Oh, people coming. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, but another reason I think we will all re-traumatize each other is because I think trauma in childhood is so common that we all are out here like the walking wounded, and you know, we might not have learned the best patterns in childhood. And even if we're working on ourselves, it's only natural to repeat behavior, especially if it's been deeply ingrained. So, you know, for instance, emotional neglect is really common, and so we might replay that in adulthood. And basically, if we're all out here, the walking wounded, how do you differentiate between someone who is abusive versus someone who is working on themselves, slipped up, and caused harm? Well, basically, I think accountability is the difference, and changed behavior, and, you know, an ability to want to listen to someone else's needs and experience, and an ability to admit when, you know, you might have fallen into harmful behavior. Abuse is also a pattern of behavior, not a one-off kind of thing. So that also differentiates it. All right, got some steps coming up. Okay. But even though accountability is a great thing, it doesn't mean that the retraumatization didn't also simultaneously occur. And accountability and changed behavior is second best to harm prevention, always. And at the same time, we all have to be, well, we don't have to be, but I think to be in relationship with each other, it does require some patience with these things. If someone is legitimately listening and taking accountability and changing behavior, more steps. Do. I had the hardest time for the longest time, you know, differentiating between abuse and people being imperfect. And I think I kind of just outlined that. And there is a difference. And, you know, given people's imperfections, no one's obligated to be in relationship with anyone else, even if abuse isn't occurring. You know, a person might just have certain boundaries that they can't deal with certain imperfections because it's very, very triggering to them. And I think that's also valid. And I mean, it also explains how some traumatized people want to be alone because people are kind of too triggering for them. I think that's also valid. It also comes at a cost, which is loneliness, but I still think that's absolutely valid. And I know that might be a little controversial, but that's just my opinion. I lean avoidant though, so that might be coloring that opinion. But yeah, the last reason I think that retraumatization in relationships is inevitable is because there's a lot of systemic inequality and interpersonal bigotry within our society. Some more steps. Yeah, but people, it affects individuals in society. These things that were taught about others, and it trickles down to the interpersonal relationship space as well. And microaggressions are really common and traumatizing. And there is evidence to suggest that we all have implicit biases that are pretty sticky. I can put a link to that in the description, but yeah, I think that's another reason that retraumatization is inevitable, and even the most well-meaning people can, commit microaggressions because of their implicit biases. And even if they take accountability, more steps, and listen to why said microaggression is harmful, it doesn't unfortunately prevent the harm. And people who are marginalized, I think unfortunately, realistically, have to deal with it. And, of course there's a lot that people can do on the interpersonal level to make it better. You know, my storage was full again, but like I was saying, there's plenty that people can do to combat implicit biases and track theirs and things like that. And yeah, I can definitely put some resources in the description to that effect. But in the meantime, we're still living life and relationships are still occurring. Sorry for that loud noise. And yeah, this is just kind of why I have the view I do about retraumatization in relationships. I think we're all on our own journeys to become more loving, or, well, that too, some people aren't, but a lot of people are, and it's a process with mistakes and along the way. Yeah, but this is just my opinion. If I am being too pessimistic about this, please tell me in the comments. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next video. Okay, bye.